Okay. Hello, Internet, and welcome back to Antiheroes Anonymous, or welcome for the first time if it's your first time joining us. I'm Ethan, and I'm the Dungeon Master for this 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons show. I will have some announcements and a recap before we dive into the story for tonight's episode. But before all of that, Nick, would you care to kick off some player introductions?
Sure. Hi, I'm Nick. I play Embers, the Tabaxi Monk.
Hi, I'm Kay. I play Elwyn Amalos, the Elvish Druid.
I'm Melissa, and I play Lisa, who is the Pixie Bard.
Hi, I'm Zach, and I play Rook, who is a changeling artificer.
So as I mentioned, we have a few announcements, and then we'll dive right into things. We premiere our episodes on YouTube every Monday at 7 p.m. Pacific time. Throughout the show, we use a variety of custom items, as well as the custom pixie lineage, which Melissa is using with tuppence there. Our character portraits, which you'll see all over our layout, are drawn by an artist named Krista Porter, who goes by @KristaPorter with 2 R's on the end on Twitter. If you need a refresher on everything that's going on in our campaign, we have a campaign wiki at World Anvil. And there's a handy little page on there where I've been kind of chronicling every step of the story so far, so you can get a quick refresher on everything that's going on. Other than that, you can check the video descriptions for links and information to everything I just mentioned and more, including some links to Stop Asian Hate and Black Lives Matter resources. Finally, please feel free to follow us on Twitter at AntiheroesAnon. Enjoy the show, share with your friends, and come back to watch some more. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll that intro video. And welcome back. Previously on Antiheroes Anonymous, the Silver Seekers investigated a rash of strange creature attacks across the city of Port Horizon Shroud on behalf of an Imperial Warden named Torin Brenworm. They learned that the Dragontooth Brotherhood are using these attacks as a distraction to cover for a caravan raid in a few days' time. Supposedly, this is the first step towards some sort of long-term goal which will restore the power of the ancient dragons of old. And somehow, Governor Nyasa of Port Horizon Shroud is involved in the plot, though that connection is still, as of yet, a little bit unclear. Both a fire genasi named Smolder and an unknown Yuan-Ti woman are key figures in the plot, but for now, the Seekers are turning their attention towards the auction house owner named Squall and the shipment of goods he recently reported missing, which may be connected to this overall Dragontooth Brotherhood plot. And so that's where we are picking up tonight's episode. The group of you had traveled to the highest bid auction house in sort of the southwestern, northeast, south. Yep, I had to think about my directions there. Southwestern corner of the city. And upon arriving, you found kind of this really nondescript building on the outside, almost warehouse-like in structure. Definitely not sort of the auction house type structure you had pictured, but upon entering it, you found that the interior was extraordinarily lavish. Everything upholstered in sort of this, gaudy color scheme. And you were greeted by the one and only, the man himself, Squall, as he kind of strode down the stairs towards you wearing his bluish suit, his wispy cloud-like hair kind of stylishly drifting up off of his head. I think I said he had a monocle firmly in place, coattails of his fancy suit billowing behind him. And he had just invited you to follow him upstairs towards where the burglary actually happened so that you could begin investigating. And I don't think you guys had talked about too many details of anything just yet. So we will pick up right there. What would you guys like to do?
Spoon.
I know.
It's been a while, I know.
Little Tuppence's heart is just fluttering away at the sight of him. Like, oh my gosh.
Well, aren't you just the cutest little creature? And he kind of comes over next to you. I don't think I've ever seen anyone quite like you. And he kind of is looking at you with awe, Tuppence.
Well, I could say the same thing about you. My
Ah,
goodness.
why? You flatter me. Thank you very much. No, there's certainly any number of air genasi here in the city and within the Empire, but you are quite interesting.
Yep, you know, I do what I can. Very nice to meet you.
Yes, of course. And he extends a hand towards you to shake your hand as well. Kind of have to grip his much larger hand with both of yours. And he kind of just gently shakes it. It is a pleasure to meet you and make your acquaintance, I'm sure.
Thank you. And here's my friends. Here's Elwyn. Can they introduce yourself, Elwyn?
We introduced ourselves, I think, at the end of the last session. It's
Yeah.
been a minute, but we did.
He kind of takes you upstairs to where there's actually you downstairs you would have seen that there's kind of an entryway that leads into a open auction stage where there's seats and things set up facing a stage with a podium where presumably whatever is being auctioned would be brought out, and then the people who are attending the auction can sort of see what they're bidding on. But upstairs there's a few rooms up here, but he takes you towards one that he tells you is his office space. And standing outside of the office is another figure. It's an orc woman. She has a very strong build, like kind of very broad shoulders, kind of grayish green skin, and she wears this dark tailored suit, very similar to his in a lot of ways. But it doesn't have like the coattails that his has. And she has this like deep blue ascot thing around the neck area. She has her hair is kind of shaved on both sides, but the top is worn in like a thick mohawk with blue tips. And then you can see that she has this massive greatsword strapped to her back. And as Squall approaches, she kind of gives him a questioning look, and he says, "Oh, this, of course, is Braca, my chief of security here at the highest bid. I imagine she'll be a valuable resource for your investigation, so please feel free to inquire with her any questions you may have."
I'd like to insight check her, please.
Okay. What are you hoping to find out?
I just want to get a read on her attitude, how she reacts when she sees Squall, how she reacts when she sees us, that kind of thing.
Sure. Roll that insight check.
What was her name again?
Braca.
Can you spell that?
Brakka.
Okay.
Their last name, Bama.
Didn't get a last name.
Oh gosh. Okay. 13.
13. Well, when she sees Squall coming this direction, you can see that she kind of stiffens up to attention, as if she's, anticipating that he might have some sort of assignment for her or something like that. And when she sees the group of you coming, you do notice that like her eyes drift to each one of you and kind of size each one of you up. I don't think you really get any more detail out of the intent behind any of that, but that's the sort of thing you
I know what
notice.
feature that is.
That's all I wanted to know was how she was reacting and if it was in any way not what a chief of security would be expected to act. If
Yeah,
that makes
fair
sense.
enough.
Yeah.
As of right now, from what you can tell, she seems very dutiful to that role.
Cool. Well, then I will offer my hand to her and say, it's nice to meet you, Braca. My name is Elwyn, and these are my associates. Together, we're known as the Silver Seekers, and we're here to help you with your problem.
She looks at your sort of extended hand, and then she glances up to Squall, and he gives kind of like a small, almost like imperceptible nod to her, and then she takes your hand and says, "It's my pleasure," and like gives you a really firm handshake.
Wow, but that is a powerful grip. I am sure you have earned your spot here, miss.
She kind of like rolls her shoulders back confidently, but doesn't really respond to that. And Squall says, yes, she certainly has. Braca is among the best of the best. I only employ the best of the best, to be frank.
I do not doubt it. Now, why don't you go ahead and tell us what it is you're missing?
Yes, of course. All of the details, I can share those with you. First, I must implore you. This is, of course, a bit of a sensitive matter. I have a certain reputation that I uphold within the city, and well, needless to say, I do business with a lot of different people. Among those people, the Imperial Wardens themselves. However, it would do my reputation considerable harm if the Imperial Wardens were to find out that this particular set of merchandise had gone missing. So, first, I must beg your discretion.
We won't tell
And
we won't tell the worms anything more than they already need to know.
Good. Then I feel that I can continue on with you. And he kind of gestures towards a sort of seating area that's nearby, and kind of pulls out seats for all of you and then takes one himself, as if he wants you to sit down before he gives you the details.
Yeah, I'll go and have a seat.
Same.
Before I sit down, how tall is Braca?
She's pretty tall, but I think Embers might be slightly taller. How tall is Embers?
Embers is like 6'6", I think.
6'6".
remember
Yeah,
right.
Embers would be taller. I think Braca might make it to she might be about 6 feet tall. But she's definitely got she's got a broader build than Embers has. So like Embers is tall, but Braca's definitely got like wider shoulders, that sort of thing.
All right. Yeah, Embers just sits.
Okay. Well, so I received a shipment from a certain supplier who, for the purposes of this, I believe shall go unnamed, of a particularly hazardous and dangerous material, highly regulated and certainly not the thing that should fall into the wrong hands. But I had intended, of course, as is my duty, to sell it only to the wardens. It's an arrangement we've had in the past. When such materials come my way, I turn to them first to keep such things from, falling into, the hands of those with less than noble intentions, of course. But there was an incident, and I struggled to understand how it could have come to pass, but someone managed to break into my office and beyond that into my vault. and withdraw these materials from there. Now, it is of the utmost importance that I recover these materials because, as I mentioned, in the wrong hands, they would be extremely dangerous.
And what, may I ask, are these materials exactly?
Well, you would be searching for it was in a case. You see a leather case, at least on the outside, metal underneath the leather, but it would appear from the outside to be a leather case. Opened up, the case contained several metallic spheres, 6 of them to be exact. And these metallic spheres, of course, contain the materials of which I am requesting that you recover. He very obviously seems to be dodging the question of what the materials are. If you want to know more, you could try and make a persuasion check.
I mean, I think I will just kind of look at him for a second and say, Mr. Squall, I apologize for being so nosy, but we really do need to know what this stuff does if we're going to have any hope of finding it.
And handling it.
Well, I assure you, if you handle it within the case and within the spheres themselves,
And if we don't?
Well, for now, we'll just hope it doesn't come to that.
For
but
all we know, they've been divided and sold separately for a higher profit margin.
Would you go ahead and
Come
make
now.
that persuasion check then?
Sure.
I'll help.
Come on now.
Yeah, you can get help from Tuppence.
So I rolled at advantage and I rolled 2 2s.
Oh no.
So that's a 7.
All right. Yeah, he looks at you and says, listen, I would love to share more information, but you understand, it's extremely sensitive. If it gets to a point later in your investigation and you absolutely can't proceed without that information, perhaps we can reconsider. But for now, please try to find some leads that involve keeping that sensitive information as secret as possible.
Who all knew about this deal that you had?
He says, he kind of sits back in the armchair and says, well, that's the thing. Very few people knew. Though I suppose most of the people, I don't run a very large operation here, but I do employ a number of people, and they do tend to learn kind of everything that goes on here. So I suppose any employee of this place might know, but beyond that, only my supplier and myself.
Your unnamed supplier. You have to give us something to work with, Paul.
I'm hoping that investigating the scene of the crime itself will reveal some leads to you, or perhaps speaking with my staff. Braca spoke with them, but they were less than forthcoming. And he looks over at her with a bit of a smile and says, well, she is quite intimidating, so I very much understand that sentiment.
Well, maybe we
Share
should just
that.
start at the scene then.
My hope is that an outside party like yourselves might have more luck.
It's definitely going to be difficult if we're not fully transparent, but we can try.
So are you thinking that the people that took it knew what was in the case? So
I
they
think
targeted it
I think
specifically?
it is highly likely because I keep a number of things within my vault, but nothing else was taken.
Okay.
Can you show us to the scene?
Isn't this the scene?
Oh, is it? I thought we just...
Well, in my office, we will find my vault, but yes, I think a thorough investigation of that is in order. However, I have yet to tell the group of you what you might earn in recompense for your actions assisting me in this matter, haven't I?
Well, we trust Malt, and Malt seems to trust you, so.
Well, very well. If you don't mind waiting discussing the matter of payment until after the investigation is complete, then that is fine as well. I'll happily show you to the scene.
Depends on whether or not you're willing to negotiate based on the dangers we might encounter on this little mission of yours.
After all, if we find the case, we've got the case.
If there's anyone who understands the value of good work done well, it is me, and I'm certainly willing to negotiate up and down depending on the danger you may find yourself facing. However, I do believe that what I am offering is of significant value and well worth the trouble. Any trouble you might face.
Well, I mean, since we're on the subject, what is it?
He reaches into his sort of like the side pocket of his suit jacket and pulls out what looks like a scroll. And he kind of unfurls it on the table in front of you and kind of gestures for the group of you to have a look.
Okay.
I do.
I'll look.
Yeah, as you lean in, I think Rook would instantly know what he's looking at. Elwyn probably so as well. Embers, you might have to read a little bit to try and, to understand what it is here. Same for Tuppence. But you find yourself looking at like a property deed. And he, as the group of you are leaning in, he says, "Now, I know that the group of you for the moment are based within the city. However, there are plenty of fine places for a group such as yourselves within the Empire to be earning coin, and you'll need a base of operations. Yes?"
Yeah, I suppose.
Don't think we've thought that far, but
Well, I did ask Malt to send me a group that he thought seemed to have the amount of cohesion to lay down a permanent place of residence, and you're the group he sent, so I only assumed. Anyhow, this is the deed to a sizable keep in a city north of here, a place called Hearth. Perhaps you've heard of it.
I have.
Have I?
Tuppence has for sure. Embers would have probably been there in her travels.
Yeah.
At one point or another. So for Embers, at least, let me find my note about the place so I can give you some information.
Does it come with the tiara?
Bless you.
He chuckles and says, no, unfortunately. Well, perhaps. I have not been to the place myself to see what may lie within, but as far as I know, no, any tiaras do not come with the place. So, Embers, you would know that Hearth is it's kind of in between a town and a city. It's like a small city up in Ardelir, which is the state that is north of Sergil, which is where Port Horizon Shroud is located. The city itself is kind of known within the Empire, or I guess known within that region for sort of grain and wheat production. But they also have kind of a fair number of hillside wineries and breweries and things like that. Yeah, and I'm sure you would have passed through there in your travels for sure. However, that would have been before Ardelir joined the Empire.
Okay.
Back when it was its own independent state.
Gotcha.
It's quite the scenic location, and well, with all of the turmoil going on, the Ardelir joining the Empire, and all of the events that have transpired the past 5 years, there's quite a bit of turnover for land, and this came my way. Unfortunately, it's a rather difficult thing to offload because most of my clientele is based here in Horizon Shroud. However, I thought perhaps for a group of up-and-coming adventurers such as yourself, it might be just the thing.
Well, we might have more work to do once we get there because I understand there's problems with the caravans.
He raises an eyebrow and says, "Oh, I had not heard."
Word gets around.
Well, work like that is nothing short of good for a group such as yourself, if I do say so myself.
Um,
Well, that is
how far
a
away
rather
is? Oh, sorry.
generous offering. Sorry, what were you going
I
to
was just
say?
gonna ask. Do we know? I know some of us do, but how far away is the Amber Hearth?
Amber Hearth from here is it's in a completely different state from Sergil, so it would be several days, if not a matter of weeks, travel
Hmm.
probably north of here.
So it wouldn't be easy to like check out the
Is that
property.
yeah? Is that on foot or is that like by cart?
If you had like horses or cart, you could probably cut that time down.
But yeah, still we probably can't get there and back before the
No,
caravan is hit.
yeah, I mean you don't know the specific timeline for that, but it seems to be more imminent than that.
Does the
I assure you, I haven't seen the property myself, but I've heard descriptions, and Amber Hearth itself is a very scenic town, and from what I understand, very up and coming. A lot of people interested in settling and establishing businesses and things like that within Amber Hearth itself.
Boy, sure sounds idyllic.
I do like the idea.
And
of
from what I
having-
understand, this keep overlooks the entire village. It's an excellent location.
does the deed have any description of like, you know, the square footage or like any of like the property details at all? Or is it just like
It probably would have some details about sort of the size of the place. And yeah, it seems like it's a pretty sizable keep. Like certainly there's enough rooms for all of you. Definitely more rooms for you to repurpose for whatever you would like. There's not really like information about what sort of furnishings or facilities the keep might have at this moment, or necessarily what the state of the place might be. But based on square footage alone, it's pretty impressive.
okay.
I mean,
Sounds like
it's
a keeper.
it's no castle or anything like that, but it's a sizable fort or at the very least residence. So
Okay. So I think Rook will just kind of sit back in his chair and kind of nod approvingly. Like, this is a pretty sweet deal. But then also thinking like, man, the thing that we're looking for must be really dangerous or something. He doesn't say that out
Mhm.
loud, but he's kind of just thinking to himself like, oh shoot.
Well, this is, I think, a very generous offer. But let's go ahead and see what we're working with here. If you could show us to the scene, please.
yes, of course, and as I mentioned, I do understand the value of a day's hard labor. So if this task proves to be worth more of your time than this, in my opinion, generous offering would be worth, we can of course renegotiate terms as things go along.
Another generous offer.
And he stands up, kind of brushes off his pant legs as he does, and brings you to the door of the office where Braca is still kind of standing there with her arms crossed. And he gestures for you to take a look at the door, and he says, "Now, as you can see, here is the first security measure, which I had hoped would go a longer way to keep people from breaking in. And as you look at the door, you can see that there's actually no like lock on the door itself outwardly, but to the wide left and right of the door, there are keyholes set into like the walls, and they're far enough apart that like even someone who had a very wide arm span, like if this person were like 10, 11, 12 feet tall and they had this ridiculous arm span, they could not, turn both keys at once.
Could Bonks
right?
do it?
Bonks could not, no.
Shoot.
But you don't know that. Well, this is the first matter. I keep 2 keys to this office, and well, I had hoped that it would be at least if I could keep 1 key safe, no one would be able to enter the premises. But neither key was disturbed, and yet, even so, the thief was able to enter this room. What is interesting about this matter is that both keys have to be turned at precisely the exact same moment, and yet, which should prevent, a thief who enters without a key, and he kind of makes a motion as if with like thieves' tools, from entering. At least a single thief. Perhaps 2 thieves practiced in working together, but 2 thieves are more likely to be noticed than 1. And yet neither key was disturbed or moved, and the thief was able to enter this room. This is the first quandary. So he kind of steps back and says, so have a look, tell me your thoughts on this matter, and then we'll proceed into the office itself.
I
And he kind
wanna-
of, yeah.
I want to look at the space between the floor and the door.
Mhm.
Like how much room is there?
Interesting. There are like less than maybe like 1.5 inches between. It's actually kind of a wide gap between the floor and the door.
Yeah. So I think Embers would just kind of like nudge Elwin and say, "You could do it." Anyone who can do what you do could do it.
Well, I suppose that's true. Something very small could fit down there. Something even the size of our little pixie friend here. I was wondering.
A Squall kind of brushes his hand through his cloud-like misty hair and says, I hadn't even considered the possibility of a creature so tiny. Already you prove your worth.
There are a number of magic spells that could help you bypass a lock. I want to look at the actual locking mechanism on the door.
Mhm.
And I kind of want to see if it was unlocked or broken or
Yeah, you could
guess-
make, I'd say, an investigation check.
my brain is running too fast for my mouth right now.
And
Jesus Christ.
when did you notice it missing? Was it overnight? You noticed it missing in the morning?
Yes, I locked up the office. Raka and I together used both keys to close this door. Everything was locked securely in the vault, but then when we returned the next morning, the vault was open and the item itself was missing.
That's a 9.
A 9.
I don't roll.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you look at the lock and you kind of examine it. This really isn't your expertise.
I don't know anything about locks. I don't know what I was hoping to find out.
Nothing jumps out at you,
I do. If
unfortunately.
you ask me.
Well, was the door open or closed when you came the next morning?
It was, in fact, ajar.
So they managed to bypass the lock somehow.
So
Brooke, do you know anything about this kind of thing? Gesture
um,
vaguely at the doorknob.
yeah, maybe. I have a question first, though. Squall, if you were to say inside your office and it was secured, is there what's the is there a way to like access, or like how do you open the door from the inside if it were to be locked from the outside with your 2 keys?
Well, 1 key I keep on my person at all times, even when I sleep, and the door cannot be locked without that key, so this situation could never arise. However, were someone to take this key from me, acquire the other key, and manage to lock me within, well, I'd be trapped. There's no windows or anything within the door.
Right,
or
but
within the office.
So you and Braca locked up the highest bid, and if the perpetrator were to somehow get inside the office, how do they get out? Is it is the keys the only way to open the door? Because clearly, if the keys were not disturbed, then it's not, right?
Well, that's the thing. Usually thieves operate without keys, which is why this double locking mechanism was my hope at avoiding such a situation.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, a thief can only pick one lock at a time. But
Embers shakes her head. Not true.
he kind of raises an eyebrow.
And Embers looks at Tuppence and says, "Show him."
Okay.
Do you still have mage hand?
Yeah, I was just yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes that far. But I just don't know if I'm proficient. I don't think I'm proficient with
Oh,
tools.
I mean, just a
But
gesture,
anyway, I'll
right?
just put it.
Yeah.
I'll just fly over to one and do my mage hand on the other.
Oh, okay. He kind of covers his mouth up for a moment and it just sort of lets out an impressed like gasp, I guess. I failed to consider the possibility of such magic. Impressive, certainly. And this hand you conjure, it could manipulate tools with such fine dexterity?
Yeah, possibly.
My locksmith did assure me these locks would be difficult to break, but I suppose not difficult enough.
I'd like to inspect the keys and the locks as well.
Yeah. If you ask, he produces one key, which he keeps tucked within his shirt. He pulls that out for you to look at.
Yeah. And I'm proficient in thieves' tools. I don't know if that helps me look at this and kind of discern. Yeah,
I
I
would
could defeat
say
this
so.
or not.
Yeah, if you're not, are you proficient in investigation as well?
I am not.
Okay, well then you can roll an intelligence check with proficiency because of your thieves' tools proficiency.
Do we
Uh-huh.
have 10 minutes in which I could ritual cast a spell?
Yeah, you have any number of minutes right now to investigate.
Well, while the rest of them are looking around, I'll go over into like a quiet corner and I have a little piece of a little twig of holly in my cloak that I keep with me, and I kind of run my fingers over it and I think and meditate and I cast detect magic as a ritual.
Okay.
So that's up for 10 minutes.
I rolled a
I
28.
will keep that in mind. 28. Let me see. Let me look
So,
at my notes here.
I would like to try and discern how difficult the lock would be to defeat, and also try and defeat it myself with thieves' tools.
Okay, so you pull out thieves' tools yourself, and you begin to work on the one lock that you're standing next to. And with that, you do manage to click all the tumblers into place and turn the key. However, the door remains locked firmly in place because that is only one of the two locks. However, you think that with your roll, you were kind of investigating the difficulty of the lock. A proficient thief would be able to get past this lock. Definitely not a novice. It's not the most secure lock in the world. It's not the least secure lock in the world. It's kind of in that middle ground.
Yeah,
I'd say.
but it definitely shows that there was some precaution or effort taken to try and protect it, or at least have someone make something that's not like a complete amateur lock. So yeah, I'll do that and be like, let's I'll kind of look at it and be like, it's okay. Like, I figured it out pretty fast here.
Well, clearly I'm getting what I'm paying for with your services. Here, allow me to turn the key in the other lock. And he kind of like motions for you to do the same thing again, and he times his turn with your picking. And when both of you do the thing at the same time, there's a click, and the door kind of swings open a little bit.
Yeah, see?
Is the lock completely mechanical?
Yes. With your detect magic, you can tell there's no magic to it.
But that's sort of besides the point, because
I'm just curious.
No, not yours. The locks. I'm kind of thinking this is sort of a red herring. And I'm like, I'm not totally convinced that the thieves used your keys or these locks. But yeah, I mean, seeing them up close and playing around with them, I could see how a couple
So
people could do this.
the way that, sorry, you were talking about this before, but the way that it works that Squall explained is that you have to unlock both at once outside to get
Mhm.
in. But if you were to get in without, like, if you were to, like, say you dimension doored inside the room or something without opening the door, are you locked inside?
Yep,
You
you're
can't
locked
get out?
inside
Okay.
because the keys also lock from the outside.
Okay.
So
That's what I thought. But
there is like a handle or something, but it wouldn't actually just unlock
Right.
the door. Okay.
and
Well-
if the door was open, then that means they got it unlocked somehow. Whether they were
Exactly. That is my
really
belief anyways.
proficient at lock picking or they use some magic, regardless, someone knows what they're doing.
While Elwyn is casting her detect magic, are you still doing that, by the way?
I mean, it takes 10 minutes,
Yeah,
so
yeah. So while you're doing that, Embers is going to talk to Braca.
Mhm.
And just be like, so, head of security, huh? What's that like?
Yep, it's pretty great. Squall's a good boss.
You work,
She kind of nods at you.
you work long hours, or
No longer than anyone else, I'd say. Average work day.
so like about when do you like get off?
Evening, 6 or 7.
Nice. All right.
Kind of depends on how late the boss needs me to work.
Sure, that makes sense.
We lock up together, so.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of lapses into silence.
Yep.
Can I?
You could tell that though that like the entire time she's kind of like you've drawn the most attention out of your entire party from her. Like she sized up Tuppence pretty quickly, and then she was done worrying about Tuppence, and then like she took a look at Rook and she saw how scrawny he is, and she's like, not worried about him. But you know, when she came to Embers, like she kind of has had to continually size you up, you know? She's appraising you constantly.
Can I roll insight on Braca as we're going through this process to see if I'm trying to see if she shows any like surprise or like, you know, anything like that, any of those types of emotions as we're sort of just defeating these things and sort of figuring things out and saying, oh yeah, magic would do that. And then Squall's really impressed, but how's she feeling?
Sure. Roll your check.
Oh, I got an Elwyn roll. Got a 9.
She's
I mean, just call them K rolls though, because Harmony never rolled really well either. I mean,
That's
you're
true.
talking to the player who lost Wish at the very end of the campaign.
Oh, I know. You're so close though.
She's very stoic. Yeah, you don't really get much of a read off of her. She doesn't really react to anything that's going on with your investigation. She almost seems to like, even when Embers is talking to her, she's kind of looking beyond the group of you to some extent. She's kind of watching the entire premises, not just what's going on here. Yeah, she doesn't
Okay.
seem to be too shocked by anything that's going on from what you can tell.
Okay.
Tuppence loves being taken for granted.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
she very much dismissed Tuppence as a threat.
turn around and
so.
body slam this half orc.
Her mistake, but
yeah, I'm ready to see it.
Almost time for some arm wrestling happening.
Just Decker.
oh man, I want to see this.
It's gonna happen. I mean, fight large creatures and Tuppence is like just roll up her
Dismissed
sleeves.
by size.
Tuppence the terror.
I don't have anything else I want to do before this spell finishes.
Well, except for look at the vault. Onto
Yeah,
the
I
vault.
mean the door now that Squall and Rook have sort of turned the keys together, the door is open, and you can go into the office. You see within, it's not a very large space, but there is kind of a nice desk there. There's actually a portrait behind the desk of Squall himself kind of sat in a big armchair, and he has like a glass of wine in one hand that he's holding it kind of like with the stem hanging down,
I love him.
because he has a portrait of himself in his
This is
office.
Great.
Love
Oh
him.
man.
Rocca's probably in the background of the portrait, just like standing there.
Standing there against the wall.
Yeah, so there's that. And then other than that, there's actually not really a lot in here. But there is a big safe that is just kind of you can see there's actually there's a closet kind of in the back, and the safe seems to be built into that closet. And Squall kind of walks you in and says, "And here, of course, is my vault."
Am I
The
getting
lock
any
on this
magic
vault was,
pings?
of course, from the vault itself. There
Just
is
the whole office.
sure.
I'm just gonna let my eyes scan.
There's not much of anything from the vault. There is a slight abjuration magic. But yeah, other than that, not much rings true for your detect magic. You do think that the vault is probably at least some portion lead or something like that, because it seems like your detect magic is not penetrating it, right? And
Thank you.
he gestures you towards the vault and says, "Now this is top of the line, and I assure you, the lock on this could not be bested by anything but a most accomplished thief.
Rook raises
And
his
yet I
eyebrow.
found its doors wide open in the morning."
Embers looks at Rook and like holds out her hand. It's like, "You have these tools?"
Yeah.
I'll give it a try.
Yeah, okay. And he'll hand Embers these tools.
I will laugh if this works.
Does Embers have Thieves' Tools proficiency?
No, but she has a pretty good dexterity score.
I'll give guidance to Embers too.
This
Can-
teamwork.
Can you not? Because I want to see if I
okay.
can just do
That's
this
fine.
by myself.
Okay.
I'm just curious. So this will just be a straight dex roll for me?
Yep.
Let's see here. Oh, that's miserable. It's a 9.
Yeah, you kind of fumble with it a little bit, and this is definitely not the sort of thing that you've trained to do. You were kind of trying to rely on that natural dexterity that you have, but it's just not getting you far enough. And yeah, you withdraw the Thieves' Tools without any luck.
Yeah, and I'll not over discuss it. Pretty good.
Well, I know, of course. I paid a significant amount for this vault, and well, it hasn't failed me. We have had other break-in attempts before this one. This is just the first one that's succeeded.
What exactly was protecting this vault before it got broken into?
What do you mean?
Well, there's a lock, but was there any other kind of safeguards set up?
Oh, you mean of the magical variety? No, the vault was created by someone with a minor magical skill, and they were able to place a spell on it. I think it's called a magic lock, arcane lock, magic.
Sounds about right.
Some such spell. Anyways, it was supposed to make the lock more difficult to crack, and as far as I could tell, up to this very point, it has.
If I go up to the safe and kind of take a look at it and investigate like the aura that I'm seeing, does it seem like a remnant of a spell that was broken, or is the spell still intact?
The spell still seems intact.
Interesting. Okay.
You could roll an Arcana check if you want to try and
All
figure out
right.
more about that.
All right, I'm gonna do my big metal die.
Embers has gone up against his vault and failed, and cannot think of any way to contribute to this, unlike the other door. So she's just gonna walk around the room and see if she can find traces of anybody else who's passing here.
Okay. Would you like to roll? I guess it'd be an investigation check, unless you have something else in mind.
Yeah, I'll let Elwin's roll proceed first, though.
Dirty 20.
Oh, yeah, you've heard of definitely heard of this spell that Squall is referring to, the Arcane Lock spell. Let's see. Ordinarily, I think that defeating the lock with a successful Thieves' Tool use would probably end the spell. But you know enough about sort of enchanting and things like that, that the spell can probably be pretty permanently imbued into an object, and you might be able to defeat it temporarily, and then it would probably reactivate itself when the safe has been closed again or something like that. So this item has probably been imbued with magic in a more permanent way than just a single casting of the spell would allow.
Okay, so you can bypass the spell just by picking the lock with Thieves' Tools, but it's just harder to do with the spell there.
Yeah, the spell
makes
affords
sense.
some magical protection to the lock, but it's still passable.
I see.
And then that doesn't dispel the spell just because you end up
Because
passing.
you picked it. Yeah, you'd have to like dispel magic or something on it. Okay.
So again, like the door, how tight are the seals on the vault? Are there any
Vault
space-
is extremely tightly sealed.
Okay.
There seems to be no entry into this vault. I mean, potentially by some magical means, perhaps, but like physically, there's like no cracks or anything like that to enter. So even though the door itself might not have been perfectly sealed or anything like that, this vault at least should have been secure. What was Ember's roll to check the room?
15 on that investigation.
15. Let me see what you might find with a 15. Let's see. Yeah, it probably would have ended up in one of the corners of the room. Probably not because like it was pushed there or anything like that, just because like it had probably drifted to that location. But you find something interesting. It's like a kind of a flaky substance. Would you roll a nature check as well?
Sure. It's a 13.
Yeah, okay, I'd say that's enough. It seems to be like it's kind of flaky and whitish. It seems to be a little bit of dried shed snakeskin.
Yeah, I guess Embers would turn back to Squall and ask, do you have any snake friends?
He raises an eyebrow at you and says, "Snake friends? No. No. I have no idea what you mean."
Embers is gonna take the scale or like the snakeskin over to Rook
Mm-hmm.
and ask, do you think this might have something to do with our snake woman friend? The one who hit
So is it like molting, or is it like?
So yeah, it looks like the kind of sort of dried skin that a snake would shed.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like a small piece of it. It's not like the whole skin or anything like that. So it's not as if something came in here and then shed off the skin, but probably, at least from what Embers can tell from searching around the room, this is like the only chunk of it that you find. More likely there was a snake that hadn't like fully shed and had a little bit clinging on, and that came into the room and then it flaked off or something like that.
Is it in any way indicative of the memory that I saw of that woman, or is it like the same type of person or the same type of creature?
I mean, I don't think you could
Or
tell
you can't tell.
that
Okay.
much. Yeah.
I wasn't sure. So I'll look at it and say, I mean, this is good evidence, but I'm not sure we can really close this one out yet, but this is a good find.
I'll hand it over to Rook.
Okay. Um.
Embers' tail flicks a little bit at being praised.
Nice job, Embers. I was gonna do something. What was it? Oh, I was gonna use the Wand of Secrets
Hmm.
and kind of just stand in the center of the room.
Did I ever give it back to you?
Yeah.
Let's see. I think there is something you will notice. I just have to find it in my notes.
Okay. I also wanted to ask Squall how he uses the vault or opens it, because obviously he's not going to pick the lock. So is it keyed, or is it like there's like a tumbler or like a not tumbler like padlock, or like is it like what does he use to?
He says, actually, in fact, well, there is a key, but well, and it could be bypassed by some manner of lockpick. But the method that I use to open the safe is a word known only to myself.
Only you know. Okay.
Yes. The key, in fact, as soon as I purchased the safe, I destroyed it because as long as I knew the word, I could open it, and I liked the idea of being the only one to open it. I'm sure you understand.
Who can you give us the name of the person who made this vault for you? Or is that, or like the company, or like whatever it was? You have that? Because that would be another lead that if you and them are the only people that can defeat this lock in some
yeah, he
way.
says, well, of course, naturally, this is a Thimblefoot production. They are the masters of the mechanical, and they do have members among them who can produce small works of arcane magic such as this.
Well, I reckon if this person, whoever it was skilled enough to get into the door to this office, they were likely skilled enough to pick the lock on the safe too, with or without the command word. But there are also ways of spying on people and listening to them speak a command word out loud when they think they're all alone.
True. This is all very true.
We live with someone who does that all the time.
He raises an eyebrow at that. I suppose I had just hoped that all of these arcane means you speak of had become rare enough to the point that my measures would be sufficient. And to this point, they had for a very long time. As I mentioned, this door and this safe have been enough to defeat a number of burglary attempts, but alas, here we are.
Owen, do you know of any powerful spell that would actually take an item out of the vault without opening it?
It was open though, right?
Yeah, he found it open.
Oh, it was open.
In the morning.
Okay.
I'm not sure I know of a spell regardless.
Okay.
But this safe, and I'll tap it with my finger as I talk. However, it was opened. It was not disenchanted. I have a feeling that even if this thief did know a little bit of magic, enough to conjure up a hand or something, whatever they did to get into the safe was enough to get past the arcane lock, as it were. So my money's on a really skilled lockpick master thief with a few tricks up their sleeve.
Do you know, you said that your mechanisms have defeated several other attempts. Do you have an idea of which group is attempting to do these burglaries on you? Is it the same people, or is it competitors, or is it like...
He shakes his head and says, No. None of the previous attempts have been as far as I know, connected to one or the other. There have been any number of rabble and lowlife who would seek to unlawfully obtain the various wares that come through my auction house. We do deal in a number of fine and expensive items. As far as I know, there's no connection between these ne'er-do-wells.
Okay.
What did Brooks Wand of Secrets reveal?
Right. Oh,
Oh,
yeah, I
yeah.
forgot.
I forgot
there
too.
was supposed to be a thing, and I got distracted.
Yeah.
Right. It would point you not towards the safe, but actually back out of the room, and to the ceiling of sort of the hallway outside of the office door.
Okay. So then after the conversation sort of lulls a little bit, then I'll produce the wand and use it, and then follow it to that finding.
Mm-hmm.
And then so it's just like something on the
Yeah, it's
ceiling.
pointing like directly up to the ceiling above the door, and it's a high ceiling. It's like, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 feet high.
So
Probably closer to
I'll call
15.
for Tuppence. Hey, Tuppence.
Yeah.
And then I'll explain the wand of secrets is pointing, and I'll show her. Do you think you would mind taking a look for me?
Yeah, sure thing. I was gonna fly around anyway in both rooms just in case, but I didn't know how far Embers got.
Okay.
So will do. Here we go.
As you begin to fly up in that direction, Squall comes back out of the office and says, "Oh, no, no need to do that. Of course, I can explain exactly."
I was gonna say I hang back and talk to Squall as they leave because I had a couple questions for him. So
Well, as you're trying to start a conversation, he sees this happening and kind of like runs out.
cool.
This kind of takes precedence for him. He runs out and says, "There's no need to investigate that. I can show you what I believe this magical device of yours is revealing. This is, of course, another one of my safeguards. The second key. It's the storage location of the second key." And he kind of begins. So this the like cloudy wisp of his hair expands and begins to kind of like drift down around his body. And the cloud starts to like lift up his feet as he levitates up into the air.
Okay.
And he kind of he does something that you can't quite make out, some sort of minuscule procedure up there, before there's like a click and one of the boards of the ceiling falls down, revealing a key in a compartment hanging on a hook. And he says, "Now, of course, should anyone not open this compartment with the proper procedure, there is a safeguard in place that would debilitate them, ideally.
A trap. So wait.
And
This
it is, of course, only accessible to someone such as myself who can elevate." He lowers himself back down, elevate their position in such a manner.
Well, that's 3 times so that Tuppence can do all these things that work into your office.
Too true. Too true. He kind of like rubs the back of his head a little bit.
So wait, I need some clarification. So that is the storage location of the second key. So in this context, the second key is which one? Because
to the office door.
So, but he has a key, Braca has a key, and this is a third key now?
Braca doesn't have a key.
Braca doesn't have a key.
Braca turns a key, but the second key belongs up in the ceiling.
Okay.
Which only someone
now.
like Squall who can levitate would be able to fetch. Levitate and also know the procedure to disarm the trap.
So is Braca still in the room following us?
Yeah, she has been keeping watch over all of you the whole time.
I'll give her a very pointed look and kind of go, yeah.
Embers is still trying to talk to Braca.
Yeah, what are you saying?
So you're not you don't work like all the time, but so what do you do when, like, for fun?
She kind of looks at you like, what does this have to do with the investigation? She gives you kind of this quizzical look, and she says, "Drinking." Fighting,
Mm.
working out.
Mhm, mhm.
You?
I like to read and practice martial arts.
That's cool.
Hmm.
Wouldn't mind seeing some of those martial arts sometime.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'd be happy to show you.
I'm more of a swordswoman. She pats the great sword on her back. This huge, massive thing that like you don't know how she draws it off of her back, but somehow she clearly manages.
Took you a long time to learn how to use that?
Nah.
No, easy, huh?
Yeah, always came pretty naturally.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
More silence. It's the dynamic I didn't know I loved until just now.
All right. I am going to go up to Squall now.
Mhm.
Once all of the ruckus is done with the second key, and say, do you have any dealings with the Dragontooth Brotherhood in your fine establishment?
No, of course not. As I've mentioned, I deal with a number of people, but when it comes to dangerous things like these, I always turn these things over to the wardens.
Of course you do. Of course you do. But I'm talking
I would
about
never-
just in your day-to-day when you're running one of your auctions in your auction house. Do you have some patrons that might be involved with the Brotherhood?
He shakes his head and says, "To my knowledge, none of my patrons would be involved with a group of bribers, swindlers, and..."
Insight check,
Yeah, of course.
motherfucker.
Yep.
Ooh, that's good. That's very good. That's 22. 22. Mhm.
When he says, "To my knowledge, none of my patrons would be involved with a group of bribers and swindlers like them," he's choosing his words carefully. To his knowledge, certainly not. But whether he, thoroughly vets that or cares in particular, one way or another, is a different thing.
Okay. Go ahead.
I was gonna just out of character. I was gonna ask, would he open up his vault for us so that Elwin could see inside with detect magic?
Yeah, probably. But someone would have to ask him to do it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna ask him.
I will eventually. But one other question. Have you ever heard of a man named Smolder?
He shakes his head and says, "No, that doesn't ring a bell to me."
All right. Would you mind opening up your vault for us so we can see inside? See, maybe there's something in there that might be a clue.
Certainly, of course. But if you wouldn't mind, as I do use a word known only to myself, I would ask that the group of you remain out here. Braca, if you wouldn't mind keeping an eye on our guest while and he kind of closes the door, so it's just him in the office.
Mm-hmm.
A few moments go by.
Mm-hmm.
I guess just probably a moment. And he opens the door back up, and the vault is now open so that you can get a look inside.
Oh, and I'm so glad you asked. I'm nosy, but I'm kind of shy to ask about that. But I was really curious about what else is in there.
It's all part of the investigation, sugar. I walk in to go look in the vault.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go investigate as well.
There's actually there's quite a bit in there. It's pretty well packed, and it's also deeper than you'd expect. There's also kind of like shelves and things set up, so there is some manner of like order that has been put into the items in here. You can see bags that presumably contain coins or gems, things like that, like very clearly pouches for monetary wealth. There's a number of documents that seem to be stored within there. presumably valuable things similar to the deed to Amber Hearth Keep, which he has offered you. With Elwyn's Detect Magic, you see a few parcels within there that they all seem to be sort of individually wrapped, so it's obscured what exactly they contain, but you can get a faint magic-y glow off of them. There's also a number of like works of art, little statuettes, fine-looking paintings, things like that that are all stored within here. And he says, now, of course, this is just where I store my most valuable of items for auction. The rest are stored in a warehouse nearby, but those that are valuable and small enough to store within, of course, reside here.
The
Where
lovely
was-
collection you have.
No, of course, of course.
Where was the case in all this?
Yeah, he gestures towards one of the shelves where there is a conspicuous empty spot. Just here.
Did anything else look out of place? Not necessarily something missing, but something found that wasn't meant to be here? Anything like that?
He shakes his head. No, no, nothing I detected anyways. From what I could tell, the thief knew what they were looking for, and they took it and absconded with it.
Shall we look around, Embers?
Is the
Yeah,
safe
yeah.
big enough for Tuppence to fly into?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Absolutely.
I think everybody can, right? Or we'll walk in there.
It's not like it's not a fully walk-in thing.
Okay.
Tuppence is probably the only one who could actually fit within.
Okay.
Okay.
Like if all the shelves and things were removed, it might house a medium creature or two.
Okay.
But with all the stuff packed in there, Tuppence is the only one who could fit.
Okay, so I'm gonna do that thing to give me more light that I do. The
Dancing lights.
lights.
Mm-hmm. And then you're going to fly in, and do you want to? What do you want to do?
I want to look to see if there's any more of that flaky stuff in here. Or anything.
Okay. Yeah, roll an investigation check. Or I guess even a perception check might work, since you kind of know what you're looking for.
Okay. So that's a +2. 14.
14. Let's see. As you fly in there, you can kind of see, so a lot of the, the pouches and things like that that are clearly used to contain monetary wealth, they aren't fully sealed at the top, and you can kind of catch a glimpse of what's within, and you can see pouches of like platinum pieces, which would be extraordinarily valuable, and also pouches of very shiny looking gems of considerable size. There's a lot of wealth stored within the safe.
I don't take any.
Yeah, I don't think you spot like any more flaky snake skin. But what I will say is interesting. So it doesn't seem like you fly in there and kind of settle down in there to look around, but it doesn't. And as you do so, you kind of disturb the contents of the safe a little bit. It doesn't seem to you like anyone before you had sort of upset, where things were stored within the safe, other than pulling out this thing. So what I'm trying to say is no one else like fully entered the safe. So it probably wasn't a tiny creature that like had to climb up the safe or anything like that,
Okay. So they didn't drop anything accidentally to leave a clue. No clues at all. Okay.
Doesn't seem like it.
Other than we know it's not a tiny creature. Alrighty.
You seem to be the first creature in maybe ever to kind of land within this safe itself.
Okay, then in that case, I'll take a little leaf off my bracelet and just kind of drop it as a little memento. Tuppence was here. Way in the back.
A squall leans over to Elwyn and says, "What was that? Should I be concerned? What did she drop in there?"
I think they call it fairy dust. It's good luck.
Well, I wouldn't say no to a little bit of luck in my current state.
Yeah,
So,
it seems to me like you'd need it.
well, that's what the group of you are here for, anyways. As
there
long as I
anything
have you,
else?
I don't need luck.
Anything else that you can tell us about the next morning? Anything else that was out of place or strange? Any of
No.
your workers acting differently than they normally act or missing from work that day?
He shakes his head. No, the workers continued to fulfill their shifts as scheduled. Raka did speak with all of the night watch and anyone who would be on the premises, but as I mentioned, she's quite intimidating, and I'm not surprised they didn't open up to her. If you want to interview some of the people who were on duty that night, that could be arranged.
Oh, yes, absolutely. We would very much like to do that.
Oh, very well. I do have business to attend. I think I will leave it to Braca to attend to arranging those interviews. Of course, I can make sure she is not present while you're speaking with the individuals, as I fear that might skew their willingness to open up. And I will, of course, make sure they are aware that, well, repercussions will not be had unless someone is very clearly at fault. Hopefully that will allow them to open up a bit more.
Or perhaps you can just stay out of it, give us some names and let us do our thing.
If that's the way you'd prefer to operate, then very well.
I mean, we don't have to talk about repercussions or the boss even knowing anything about it.
He nods and says, "Very well. You are the experts in this matter, not myself. I'm certainly no investigator. So I will just have Braca gather the individuals who were on shift that night, and then you may have at your discussions, I suppose." And he kind of goes over and speaks quietly with Braca for a moment, and she goes off. He closes the safe door, and you can hear kind of a locking, like a sound as tumblers spin back into place, and the safe locks itself. And then he kind of ushers the group of you out, closes the office door. Obviously, he doesn't have Braca around to lock it with him for now, but he kind of gestures you into that sitting area where he showed you the deed, and brings a set of like tea. It's like a small bar set that has like tea, coffee, and then a couple of also alcoholic drinks available as well. And he says, "Please have at these at your leisure while we wait for Braca to round up the evening staff from that night. I do have business to attend. Would it be all right if I left you here for a moment?"
Of course, of course.
Is it
Thank you kindly for the refreshments, and don't worry about a thing. We'll get it all taken care of.
He gives a nod and a slight bow and says, "Thank you for excusing my terrible rudeness, leaving guests such as yourself to your own devices, but I assure you Braca will be back in just a moment." And he, with that, takes his leave and heads off elsewhere in the auction house.
is the tea black or green?
There's both.
Oh, I'll have some green tea.
I will
Copy.
also have some tea.
It is pretty high quality green tea. And when you look at it, it actually comes in a little packet. And the packet seems to have a brand that is associated with Amber Hearth.
We're all nodding. Oh, cool.
So what does everyone think?
Wasn't he delightful?
Delightful and suspicious as hell.
Oh my gosh. Well, when he did that hair thing, and it picked up. Did you see that? Oh my gosh. I thought my heart was going to start in my chest.
What did you all think of Braca?
Probably not as much as you.
Seems like you two were getting on pretty well. I'm happy for you, Embers. It seems like a strong, stalwart companion. Hopefully she doesn't scare off all of our leads.
My goodness, a keep.
Amber Hearth? I'm not sure I've heard anything about it before.
It's all
I
right.
come from the south, so
Amber Hearth.
It's a nice enough
Keep it.
place.
A keep in Amber Hearth. It just sounds so romantic, and charming.
it would be nice not to impose on our friends at the mill house,
On Nora.
Nora and them.
It'd be nice to have a place that we could call our own home.
Wonder if Malt would like to come with. Couldn't you see him in the rafters of a keep?
I'm sure if
We'd
it's
have our own
popular enough,
dragon.
he might do that.
Our own dragon in a keep.
Well, as the group of you sip on your refreshments, does anyone take anything else other than embers?
For the
Yeah, I
drinks
think
and
we
stuff?
said.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I missed that.
also took some tea and Brooke took some coffee.
There's coffee there.
If it makes
Yeah.
sense to do so, I'd mix the coffee with the alcohol and drink that.
There's
Ooh.
some alcohol too. Yeah.
Yeah, there's sort of a creamy alcohol of sorts, like a Bailey's type thing.
Yep, that's it. That's going in.
Goes right in the coffee.
Oh yeah.
It's not too long before Braca comes back, and as she alights on the landing and sees the group of you sitting there, she has kind of a slight look of surprise as she comes over and she says, "Where did Squall go?"
He said he had some other business to attend to, and said he'd be right back.
That fool. You gather that
Now,
she's
that's funny.
surprised.
Why do you say that?
We've just had a break-in, and he's leaving the group of you who we just met alone.
And who are capable of breaking in. Yeah, that makes sense.
Look, it's not that I don't trust you. It's just that I really don't trust you. And
You're a smart woman, Braca. But don't worry, we're
She
not
nods
going to
at
steal
that.
from you.
Embers also nods at that.
Fine. Well, be that as it may. I've rounded up everyone who was here that night. They're all waiting for you. I've set up a spare room that you can use to speak with them individually. And I think Squall wanted me to stay out of it, so I'll stay up here for the time being.
Thank you kindly, Braca.
Thanks, Braca.
Oh, and
Before
Braca,
we talk to them, though, go ahead, Tuppence.
I was just going to mention to her that, did you know Ember's favorite color is purple?
She kind of like looks at you, tilts her head a little bit to the side, and says, "Oh, because she's a tabaxi?"
But also, actually, it is purple.
I kind of like
Embers,
blue.
I didn't know that.
Hmm.
Yeah, she says, "I kind of like blue," and kind of gestures to her little ascot thing that is tucked into her suit.
The ascot and the hair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Don't you have an investigation to conduct?
Right. Before you leave us, Brocco, I think if you could tell us in your own words what you saw that night or the next morning when you discovered the break-in, anything that Squall forgot to mention.
We locked up as normal. Every night I turn things over to the evening security shift. There's a number of security members who stay overnight to keep an eye on things. They're all rounded up below for you to speak to them. Came back in the morning, start my shift the next day. found the door open and the safe open. Security staff were not forthcoming.
So,
Usually,
sorry, go ahead, Embers.
do you usually arrive before Squall?
Yes.
So when you
Does the
say
rest of the security staff know where the keys are to get into the
She
room?
shakes her head and says, no, the only ones who know the location of the keys are Squall and myself. And as he mentioned, neither was disturbed. We would have known if the trap in the ceiling compartment was activated. And Squall assures me that his key did not leave his person that night, though I suppose I have no way to confirm this.
And you said that they weren't very forthcoming. Does this indicate that they knew and they were afraid for their jobs, or like, you know?
She shrugs. And as she does so, like, her shoulder muscles just ripple. And like the great sword on her back rises up a couple inches.
I look at Embers.
She's an orc as well, so like she kind of has, even when her mouth is closed, she has these tusks that protrude from her mouth that are kind of intimidating.
Embers' tail is like standing straight up with a little crook at the end.
Oh my gosh. Do you trust them, Braca? Do you think that they let this happen?
We vet all of our security staff carefully, by which I mean I vet all of our security staff
Sure.
carefully.
Yeah, you're the security chief. I understand. But I mean, after an incident like this, surely even you have questions.
Something went awry. Of course, I have questions. But when I tried to get the answers, I was unable, which is why you're here.
Okay.
We'll handle it. And they're way
Alright.
better with Mage Hand.
She just kind of nods
Well,
stoically.
Braca, why don't you help yourself to some refreshments and we'll be right back.
She looks at the refreshments on the table and then walks back over to her post by the office door.
I figured it was worth a shot. All right.
But as the group of you kind of head downstairs towards the area that was indicated, there's a group of individuals who are sort of in the lobby area gathered there. And all of them look kind of nervous. Not really many of them are talking amongst themselves. And there's also a room where the door has been opened, and you can see there's kind of like a table and like a number of chairs set up within. That is probably the private room that Squall and Braca were talking about. So there's a number of individuals here, and we don't have to take them one by one, but I am curious, what is your general approach to speaking with these individuals? Is it diplomatic and kind of persuasive, or are you trying to use deception to steer them into leading you to answers, or are you trying to scare the answers out of them? What's the tactic?
One thing I wanted to do while we were on our way is I want Embers to bring as many of these cups and packets and trays with her as she can.
It's all on one tray. You can just kind of
Oh,
pick it up and take it with you.
You're
if you
muted
want.
again.
Yeah, I'll just take all of the whole thing with us
Sure.
Okay.
as like kind of a bribe or an offering that we can give to people.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be totally useless in as far as like the actual negotiation part of this goes, so that's my contribution.
So,
Rook, do you want to do good cop, bad cop?
well, Rook is proficient in both intimidation and deception.
Well,
So-
intimidation didn't really work before, so
Which,
Yeah,
again,
like
for what?
with Braca.
Oh, well, I mean,
I am very much more skilled at persuasion than deception or intimidation, and I do have some certain skills that you've seen me use before that would help,
sure. Yeah, we can do
attract
something.
the flies with honey, so to speak.
Okay. Well,
But if that fails, we could bring in the bad cop.
I'll be the
if you
bad
wanna do
cop.
it that way.
Yes.
Okay, so you're kind of make a multiple pronged approach. It sounds like with Elwyn kind of leading out with a persuasive attempt using magic when that fails, and then
Mhm.
if all of that fails, then Rook comes in with the "I'm scary, your job is at stake."
Yeah. I would, come in with just lining them with questions about their employment and like,
So
writing
not
things
like
down.
muscle
and-
intimidation, but
Yeah.
like your future's on the
But
line.
it's like one of the things
intimidation.
where they brought in. Surely they know that we are here for that. They brought in
Yeah.
specialists, and so we are going to find the cause of this. And so yeah, it's already kind
I'm
of
just
scary for them.
pouring in the empathy in my approach.
Mhm.
And
And then Embers has
Sitting
a
down
trait
and
of
it must be so scary. You must be
Yeah.
so nervous. Like I can only understand how this feels for you, kind of thing.
Embers would be like pouring tea or coffee or whatever they want, and then periodically, when Elwin's approach doesn't work and Rook starts to step up, she'll just like take the whole tray away.
Okay.
Well, Steppins will sit and kind of in a corner and just play the lute to kind of calm things down.
Until
chilling
Rook gets
here.
involved, I'm sure.
Yeah.
In that case, Elwin can make a persuasion check with advantage.
Okay.
Partially because you have Embers and Tuppence helping you, and also partially because you're assisted by your magic.
If I need, should I burn a spell slot on it, or
Was
I
it
was
a
only going to pull that out if we found somebody who knew
All
something,
right,
but
so
was
you
really
can hold on
not.
to that. You have the
Okay.
advantage because everyone is
It's
assisting
helping.
you anyways. So
Did I just? No, I didn't. I thought I rolled the same number twice again, but I I didn't. I mean, it's not the best. It's a 14.
14. Okay. So you get through a few of these interviews, and most of them go pretty well. You get along, like you feel like you're getting pretty good answers using the honeyed technique. But a couple do come along where it seems like Rook needs to step up. So Rook, would you make your intimidation check as well?
Okay. So that's a dirty 20.
Okay.
Cracks his insignificant knuckles.
At one point, you're interviewing one of these workers, and it seems like Elwin is putting on the charm, and it's not quite working, and so Rook comes in with the intimidation tactic.
I think he just says, "You come with me," or something like that, or maybe if there's like a second room.
Yeah,
I don't know.
this individual clearly begins to sweat under Rook's further interrogation, and you could see that they're hiding something. And you keep pressing and pressing and pressing, and finally, they say, "All right, it's look, I don't know anything myself. All I know is that after that night, Vondal Big Toe, he seemed really shook up." That's all I can say. That's all I know. Really, it is.
What was the name?
Vondal
How do you
Big
How do
Toe.
you spell this phone doll?
Vondal.
Big Toe.
Last name Big Toe, spelled like it sounds.
Yeah, and then he said Vondal Big Toe. What?
Vondal Big Toe. Yeah, he was really shook up after that night. He was one of the security staff. I don't know what happened. That's all I know. All I know is the next night when he came back for his shift, he seemed really, really anxious or worried. Didn't tell me what was what, but just please don't get me fired. And so this individual finally spills that. And you guys haven't interviewed this Vondal yet.
Embers puts a couple of sugar cubes into his coffee hands a drink.
It's not poison, is it?
Embers shakes her head.
Rook will just kind of glare at him.
Takes a sip, like hands shaking as he raises the
And then
coffee cup.
Smile.
It is poison, isn't it? Spits it out.
Clean that up.
Yes, sir. Starts cleaning it up with like his shirt.
Yeah. You're lucky the lot of you weren't fired already and to get new security staff after this.
Well, I've got a family to support.
I don't care about your
This
family.
person just runs out of the room crying.
Yeah. Who's next?
I do not regret my decision to suggest you're the bad cop, Rook.
Oh, it's no problem.
You're very effective at that.
Thank you. I'm glad that we have a wide array of skills that we can use. So
I
this,
suppose it's time to talk to Mr. Big Toe.
yeah, is he in line next? You're coming.
It wouldn't have been next in line, but if you go
They're
out there
coming
and
up.
like call
No.
for, you just want to let it come up naturally.
Yeah, because I don't want him to.
You don't want to tip
think,
off that you know something.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
I want.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't want to show our cards.
Yeah,
So-
so you go through a few more interviews without really getting anything substantial. Could one of you make, or yeah, I guess one of you could make it with advantage, like I guess an insight check or an intelligence check, something like that.
I have a +4 to both of those.
I have a +5 to insight.
Oh.
With
You wanna go for it?
advantage?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Ooh, that's a 19.
Okay. Something you begin to notice as the interviews wear on is that none of the people you're interviewing are kobolds, but you believe that Malt told you that Squall employs a number of kobolds.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we saw some on the way in,
Yeah.
Yeah.
too. But no kobold security staff.
Seems that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, a few more interviews go by, so you can make it that way you will, but a few more interviews go by, and eventually someone comes in, and it's a dwarven man. He's kind of stocky with rather light skin with kind of like reddish undertones to it. Dwarven man with like a thick brown beard but a bald head. He very much looks like a security person in that he's wearing like hide armor and furs. And he kind of has like a battle axe that he wears as well. And he comes in and sits down and takes a seat at the table and kind of gives the group of you a scowl.
Pour him a black coffee.
Yeah, he looks at it and doesn't take it. Right, what's all this about then?
Well, can we have your name, good sir?
No, I'm Vondal Big Toe.
Uh-huh.
I work security here. Night shift.
And you,
Embers' contribution, he'll be to go to the door and block it.
okay.
All right, that's scary.
You seem like you'd be pretty good at that job.
Yeah, I can swing an axe.
How long have you been working for Squall?
A couple of years, 2 or 3 at this point.
Have you ever had anything as exciting as the other night happen while on the job?
He says, well, the other night, nothing exciting happened the other night.
Well, surely you'd heard.
Well, I mean, of course, Baraka interviewed the lot of us, but I didn't see anything. As far as I was concerned, it was just an average night.
Oh.
I don't think you
An
need an insight check.
that.
I don't think you need an insight check because you have previous
Because we
information.
have previous, yeah.
Yeah, watching for all of the tells, he does seem to be clearly lying there.
Well, you know, that's interesting because I heard that you might have seen something.
What? No, I didn't see nothing. Who told you that?
Oh,
That's a
come on.
lie. That's slander.
Come now, Mr. Big Toe, don't you want these people to get caught?
Sure, of course. I don't want any harm to come to Mr. Squall's business. Of course not. This is an excellent place to work. I wouldn't want to be out of a job. No, of course not. But I just can't help you. I don't know anything.
Lying to us is not helping your employment, Mr. Big Toe.
I kind of raise my eyebrow at Rook and I look back and I say, listen, I'm only trying to help you here, but if you keep saying the wrong things and if you keep lying straight to our faces, well, I can't be held accountable for what Rook tells your boss.
Eppins is gonna go fly over and land on his shoulder and flick his ear.
Yeah, he tries to like bat you off. Could you make a acrobatics check?
Oh man, this is it. This is where she just plants him in the ground.
Okay, acrobatics. That is a 16.
Yeah, you
Plus.
soar over his hand as he tries to flick you off his shoulder. And you have like when he like makes that sweeping gesture with his arm, he is wide open. His entire like side of his face, you could do whatever you want. It's just like a broad opening as you've juked his hand.
Okay, so with Mage Hand, yeah, I'm gonna pull his ear and go, "Hey, don't try anything funny."
Ah! Well, now there's no need for any of that. Call off your little tiny minion.
The last thing you'll
Muffins,
smell is
come over here and
brownies.
sit down. Come over here and sit down. And I pat my shoulder.
Oh, all right. I was just getting
Don't pick on
started.
him. Don't pick
I
on him
don't-
yet. I
He's
know,
like
Mister.
he's rubbing
don't-
his ear, which is all red.
I don't like it when people lie to us when we're only trying to help.
Listen, I know Mr.
Glare
Big
at him.
Toe has only the best intentions here. Okay,
Well,
you
that's
hold on to
right.
your temper for just a minute. I know he's gonna tell us the truth of what exactly he saw that night and why he was acting so funny the next day.
I'm holding my loot like a bat.
Elwyn, could you make a persuasion check, and you can take advantage because
Okay.
Tuppence and Rook have been intimidating.
That's much better. 19.
Yeah, he's kind of like rubbing his ear. And he says, look, I just
I reach for the coffee cup that Ember's poured, and
mhm.
I get a little bit of the Bailey's and pour it in, and then I push it across the table at him and just sit and wait.
He looks down in it, and you could see like he's shaken, like he doesn't know what is up with it. Like he doesn't know what's going on. Why you want him to have it so bad? And it just makes him
It's
not
just
want to
a
take it.
Peace offering. It's a peace offering.
He looks back at you and he says, "Look, the truth of the matter is, I don't know what happened that evening. I just don't understand.
Well, if you,
You promise
you're
none
willing-
of this gets back to Mr. Squall,
of course not.
and
We'll keep
especially
your
not to
name
Braca.
We'll keep your name completely anonymous. Now, if you're willing, my colleague here has a way to make sense of what it is you saw, but you have to let him into your mind.
Let him into my mind.
I assume that's something you can do today, right, Rook?
Yeah, sure.
Well, all right. Just don't go probing in there.
Just
I
think
don't want to.
about.
I don't want to come out of
Just-
this with my mind all addled.
Oh no, not
Probably-
at all.
Probably
You're
won't
just
even
going to
take
be
very long. Sorry.
reliving that night in your mind. Think about what happened, and you'll be able to show us. Well, show Rook.
Well, all right. I suppose. And he just kind of nervously looks at Rook.
Yeah, so Rook pulls a chair up next to him and kind of just glares at him for a little bit and then just says, as long as you're concentrating on that night, I'm sure that you'll end up just fine from this. Concentrate.
All right. He closes his eyes.
Very important that you're trying to keep things as crisp and clear in your memory. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then so Rook will place a hand on his shoulder and cast Review Memory.
Okay. You feel that familiar sensation as your mind is pulled out of your consciousness and into his. And the memory begins to take visual form within your mind, Rook. You see a knight. You seem to be stationed outside of this warehouse that houses the auction room and Squall's office and the safe. The door that the group of you came in fact. And you're kind of looking around. It's kind of a cold night, so you bundle some of the furs and like hide armor closer around you, shiver a little bit, but then you spot movement in an alley nearby. It's probably nothing. You don't pay it too much of a second of thought. You keep scanning, but then suddenly someone is striding out of the shadows towards you. a woman with dark hair. It's a woman who Rook recognizes, but this person whose memory you're reviewing does not. It's
Yeah.
the Yuan Ti woman from previous visions. She approaches Vondal and begins to speak with him, and it seems like she feigns being lost and starts like asking for directions, and he tries to brush her off, but then she gets really close to his ear and she whispers, "Actually, I have something I could use you for. I'm going to give you something and you're going to place it within this building. And you're not going to tell a soul about it." And you feel this kind of tingling sensation spread from your ear to your brain and the rest of your body as that suggestion takes hold. And the woman extends towards reveals that she is carrying sort of a small cage, and she opens the cage and pulls out a kind of like a medium-sized, like it's not a small snake. It's got significant size to it, but it's not like a huge python or anything like that. She withdraws the snake from the cage and it kind of slithers around her arm. And she says, "All I need you to do is place this within, and what I want will be mine." And the snake kind of then slithers up around Vondal's arm, transferring from hers to his. And he just says, "Well, all right, if that's what I've got to do." And he goes to turn and walk back into the warehouse. And as he does, this woman just smiles, a toothy smile, and you can see that a couple of her teeth are fang-like. And she begins to head off. Rook, can you make a perception check?
Yes. Ooh, that is a 21.
Okay. She begins to head off in a specific direction. Let me see.
Oh, Rook's great at directions.
Let's
Is he?
see.
He thinks he is.
Is
Well, maybe he doesn't think he is.
Kind of like a southeastern direction from where you're at.
Okay.
But you get a very clear like view of the street that she starts heading down.
Okay.
And as she walks away, Vondal turns around and walks into the warehouse, places the snake, sort of goes up kind of towards the stairs, places the snake on the ground, and it begins to curl its way up the banister and out of sight. The other thing you notice with your perception check, Rook, is that while you are outside and sort of receiving the snake from this woman, there's another form nearby that Vondal doesn't seem to have noticed that you spot. The woman perhaps didn't even notice it herself either. You see peeking around the corner of the building the tiny lizard-like head of a kobold who kind of sees this happen, eyes go wide, and then ducks back around the corner as if they've seen something they wish they hadn't seen. And then the memory ends.
Okay. Was I able to see the kobold somewhat clearly, or was it like?
Yeah, with your perception check, you got a pretty good look.
So I could, if I see that kobold again, I could be like, "Hey, you were there."
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
This kobold has kind of like gray scales, and they were dressed in like baggy overalls without any sort of like shirt or anything like that. Kind of like jeans overalls.
Okay, so
in fact, since you rolled such a high perception check, I would say it is one of the kobolds who you saw exiting the building.
I see. Excellent.
when you came in.
Okay.
And then
Great.
the memory ends.
So yeah, you guys see Rook in the chair with Vondal, and then as like he gets like the speaking in the air, he kind of like slinks over to the side, and he's like, "Oh gosh, get away from me!" And then when the snake is up him, he's like, you see him just like trying to like not like fidget too much, and like every time the snake moves, he's like trying to like wiggle away from the snake, and he's like, "I hate this, I hate this, I hate
Oh,
this."
the other thing I would say, since Rook was one of the members in the cargo hold of the ship, this was absolutely the snake that was in the cage the day you investigated the
gonna
flying
ask.
ray. Yeah,
Okay.
it's absolutely that
The
same,
same
snake.
snake.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, and so we meet again.
It has kind of like peach colored to pinkish scales, a couple red scales as well. It's in that sort of color palette.
Yeah, and so Rook is like squirming a little bit and like, "Oh my gosh, this is the worst," and stuff. And then after the memory ends, he opens his eyes, and then he just like takes a couple breaths and tries to like kind of regains his composure, and then he taps Vondal on the shoulder, kind of signaling, "Okay, we're done."
What? I can stop concentrating now?
Yes, you did well.
All right. Am I done here? You figure out everything you need to know? Can I get gone?
We'll keep in contact.
Please don't.
Thank you
That's
very
not up
much
to
for
you,
being
Vondal.
such a big help, Mr. Big Toe.
Embers moves away from the door.
Yeah, he very quickly gets up and rushes out the door, having never once touched his coffee.
Rook was gonna
Embers
smash that coffee
I-
mug. if
Sits
I
it
had
a little
to.
bit and like makes a face and is like, ugh.
Yeah, Rook was gonna be like, "You liar!"
I was gonna hand it to Rook. Like, you look like you could need this after that. I
Yep.
don't know what it is you
He'll
saw,
drink it.
but
I don't know. I mean, and he kind of looks at Tuppence and he's like, "You wouldn't like what I saw.
Oh, wouldn't I?
Remember that thing we saw that scared you away from the boat?
Oh Lord.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was
Dead.
slithering all around me. It was the worst.
Why?
I know. So yeah, Rook will share all of the findings, leaving nothing out, and kind of like nod and just say, I think we were sort of spot on with having something that was small and able, and when what Embers found, the molting, I mean, that kind of, this is obviously, what happened.
It's interesting,
fits
though,
right
because
in.
snakes don't have the
fingers.
ability to manipulate thieves' tools.
Yeah, I was gonna say the door was open though.
Yeah, but all the
Both of
creatures
the
on
doors
that,
were
all the
open.
creatures on that ship were,
Really?
magical creatures. Can I
Strange.
roll like an Arcana or something to try and
So it
discern
might have
Mhm.
been some
what kind of
kind of a
creature it is?
shape shifting
It has to
I'll,
be
I'll, roll a
something.
I'll roll a history as well, just in case.
History would work.
Okay.
nature.
I didn't roll very well. I got an 11.
With Arcana.
Yes.
I also
Okay.
got an 11 with history.
Let's see. Trying to open up my page for this creature.
Oh, unless I can have guidance.
We already rolled.
That's
Yeah.
true. Damn.
So it doesn't ring a bell really for either of you in particular. However, it doesn't seem to Rook, it doesn't seem beyond the realm of possibility that this snake could clearly be some sort of magically altered monstrosity, as a number of the creatures being loosed in the city have been.
hmm
Embers, it doesn't ring any specific bells to you, but you do know of Yuan-Ti that they have an affinity for snakes and snake-like creatures. So everything about this makes sense, that if it was that Yuan-Ti woman, that she might have had some sort of snake-like monstrosity that she could manipulate or control in a way that would benefit her.
Should we have them call in gather up the kobolds so Rook can identify the one we need to talk to.
Do we need to talk to the kobolds? Like, I don't know what
The
other
only-
information we can find out. It's not like they
Unless-
decided to track her or anything.
Yeah,
for
unless he
us.
followed
Well,
her.
We don't
Right.
know what that one kobold did. He might have seen something else.
Right. So if we're interested in knowing more about the woman, then I think we should contact the kobold. Because I don't know about I guess if she retrieved it right afterwards and if he would just kind of stayed around and watched, he might have seen something. So maybe it's good for both cases to know how nosy he was. So yeah, it doesn't hurt, I guess, since we're here.
All right, I'll go ask Braca. And
Thank
Embers,
you.
please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hard task
do that.
for you. Darn. Don't take forever though.
Yeah, you find Braca upstairs kind of at her post, but in a position where she can kind of lean over the railing a little bit and watch the proceedings down below. She's kind of apparently been watching the individuals go in and out of the room.
Does she seem entertained? I want to know.
Yeah, especially the ones like the one who was before, or one of the ones before Vondel, the one that you clearly intimidated,
Yeah.
who like ran out crying. Like she got a good chuckle out of that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'll motion her down.
Yeah, she comes down the stairs, kind of
We-
stops in front of you.
We need to talk to one of the kobolds. Don't know its name. But if you can get
Kobolds
them,
don't work that late.
it wasn't working at the time, but it was around. We don't know its name, but we can recognize it. We'd know it on sight.
All right, I can gather the kobolds.
Thanks.
You done with this lot? And she gestures towards the rest of the security staff.
Yeah, I think so.
Then she basically like raises her voice kind of for the first time that you've heard this above kind of a regular tone. And she says, "All right, back to work." And the group of them just kind of like yelp and scatter. Right. I'll go get those kobolds.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
And she brings back a group of kobolds a few minutes later, and Rook can easily pick out the grayscaled kobold who he saw within the memory.
Okay. So Rook will point him out and say, "We need to talk to you."
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Braca kind of gives a nod, and the kobold follows you into the room. All right. Hi.
Hello. And then Rook will.
What's your name, Sugar?
Okay.
Oh, I'm Dola. What's your
Oh,
name?
there.
Well, I'm Elwyn, and this is Rook and Ambers, and this little one here is Tuppence. Hi.
Kind of waves at the group of you.
What do you
And
do
just kind
here,
of like
Dola?
sits nervously in the chair. She spots the coffee with all the lumps of sugar in it and like the Baileys, eyes it for a second and kind of grabs it and starts taking a sip.
That was Rook's coffee.
It's a communal coffee now.
No, I guess we're sharing coffee. Okay.
Coffee.
It's caring.
Sorry, you said Dola?
Dola, Dohla.
What is it you do here, Dola?
Oh, I work in the warehouse with the rest of the kobolds, moving things here and there, back and forth. She nods.
How late were you working the other night when the break-in happened?
Her eyes get a little bit, they start like shifting back and forth. Oh, regular hours.
I don't even need to roll insight.
I'm gonna just reach out very gently and put my hand on her shoulder and say, "Listen, Dola, you're not gonna be in trouble, but there's a very bad lady out there who had a snake.
She
And we're
like
trying to find her."
subconsciously like nods when you say there's a very bad lady out there.
Yep,
And then she catches herself and stops.
And we're trying to find her so that we can get your boss's things back. Now, anything you can tell me about her would be very, very helpful.
She kind of looks around the room. She says, "Wait, who are you people?"
We're your
security
friends, dear.
consultants.
We're here to help.
Uh,
We're the Silver Seekers.
Yeah, have you heard
Do you
of us?
know Tess and
Molo.
God, Molo?
she kind of shakes her head.
No.
No.
I got all kobolds new. No.
There's a lot of kobolds in this city.
No.
Yeah.
It's fine. We're the Silver Seekers, and we're here to help.
Okay. Look, I don't know how I can help you. We kobolds, we clock out before the evening security staff starts, so none of us were here.
That's true. And I'm not gonna get you in trouble for hanging around outside of the warehouse after hours. Like what you do after hours is your business. But if you did happen to see this very bad lady with this very scary snake talking to a very loud dwarf.
Would you roll another persuasion check?
Okay, that's a 14.
Okay. Yeah, she as you kind of go through all of this and you're kind of leaning in and explaining all of this gently and you kind of with this warm Elwyn tone that you have, she like slowly begins to start nodding along with what you're saying. And finally she says, "Yeah, okay, I know a little."
Please. I refill her coffee.
Oh yeah, she takes more sips of that. Well, I was working late because I got a late start that day, and I needed to wrap things up, or Mr. Squall and Braca would be angry, because things needed to be ready for the auction the next day, and so I was working, and then I finished my work, and I was gonna go home, but then I heard some of the security staff talking to someone, and I looked around the corner and I saw the woman you're talking about. I saw her, and I know who she was. I knew right away. I saw her robes, and I knew.
Well,
one of the
who's that, dear?
Dragontooths.
Right. Do you know her name?
Oh no, I don't know that. But the Dragontooths, they're bad business. It's dreadful. They've influenced a lot of the young kobolds in the dens, and some of the older ones too, who and they're not very nice to the kobolds either. But all the kobolds, they support them because they want to see the dragons, and yeah, I have some friends who have kind of fallen under their sway. I knew who she was. That's what I'm trying to say. They're bad business.
Oh, yes. Very bad.
And
Very bad.
I saw her give the snake to the dwarf, and then he went inside and went back to his post. And then a little while later, the door behind the dwarf opened up again from the inside, and the snake came slithering out, and it had this box that was levitating above its head with floating hands. And it slithered off.
Do you have an idea of where the woman or the snake went? Like where it slithered off to, and then when you last saw it? What street it was on?
I didn't follow it. I was scared. But
I don't blame you. It is scary.
she looks back at Elwyn and seems to take like some comfort from Elwyn's presence. Works up the bravery and says, "But I know where their base is."
Do you?
That's a start. That's definitely
you-
more information than we have.
Could you share that with us?
They've got a warehouse. It's not far from here. That way. And she points in like the southeastern direction.
Okay, in the direction I saw her go.
Yep. It's got some graffiti, some artwork on the building that someone put there, and nobody's scrubbed it off just yet. It's pretty clear once you see it. It's what's a big? It's like a bear, but it's feathery, and it's got a beak. And in its beak, it's chomping one of the worms, and the worm is being chomped in half by this bear with a beak.
Okay.
That
It's on
does
it's
sound
on
very
it's on a whole
distinct.
side of the
is-
building.
Okay. That's
All right.
specific enough that I think that shouldn't be
Yes.
hard to find.
Look, I'd take you there, but
No, no.
No,
I just
no.
I don't
Okay.
want to go anywhere near there. And look, those people are bad. So if me telling you this helps stop them from doing things to and influencing the rest of the kobolds in the dens, then I'm happy I told you.
You've been very forbearing.
That's
Thank you.
Spirit Dola. Thank you, Sugar, so much for all the information. You've been so helpful
And brave.
Dola,
and
do you
very
want?
brave.
She
Do you
kind of
want him-
holds her cup up for another refill of coffee.
Yeah,
Yep.
Embers fetches it.
You can take that with you, Sugar.
Oh no, that's okay. I can finish this quick. And she kind of just like gulps it. It's like it's really hot coffee, but she just gulps it down.
Okay.
Oh,
So what's Bracca's reaction to all of this information?
Well,
kind of
Bracca's
flooding
not
in?
in the room.
Oh,
right
I
now.
thought. Okay, sorry. I thought she was. I
Nope.
Yeah.
She got the
misunderstood.
kobolds and then left you to
And
your
then
business.
let. Okay.
That was part of the whole thing because like
Yeah.
nobody talked.
Okay, that's
So-
right. Okay. For some reason, I thought she followed us in with the kobold that time. So never mind. Okay.
well, it's looking more and more like whatever was stolen is going to be used on this caravan heist.
Might be one and the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a good thing we looked into this for several reasons.
Yes, I agree.
One of which is a very handsome and strongly built orcish woman.
Embers just looks kind of shifty and like maybe blushes. You can't tell beneath the fur.
I just
Probably
like
is,
elbow Embers in the side, like teasingly. Well, I reckon it's time to let Bracca and Squall know we have a lead and maybe head off to go see if we can track down this warehouse, huh?
Yes, I believe that's what we should do.
So,
I'm also
Embers,
out of
would you
spell
like to
slots.
deliver the good news?
I'm very impressed
Yes.
with you all. It was a small creature with magic hands. Very impressed.
Just like you. You have a lot in common with this snake.
I can go back to work
Don't
now, right?
Don't even think that.
Rook just
Dola
kind of
says.
walks out the room.
Yes, please, Dola. Thank you so much.
Okay, just look. If you can do anything to stop them from doing what they're doing with the kobolds, I think it's going to be really bad if they keep being allowed to influence the younger ones.
So do we.
Yes, we agree.
I'll go tell Brock of the good news.
And by the way, you're very aptly named. You dole out good information.
I don't get it, but thanks. And she runs away. Okay. So you want to go tell Bracca and Squall that you have a lead, and then is your plan to? What's your plan?
I guess just go over there. I mean,
Yeah. Do we need like, is everyone good as far as rests go?
we
Like,
kids came off a long rest this morning.
Yeah,
I
Have
know,
we-
but like
Oh yeah.
I'm out of
Rook was
spells.
saying, he's out of spell. How are you
And-
already out of spells?
He's done a lot of reviewing memories.
I did. I have
Just
2
one.
slots, and I reviewed 2 memories, I believe.
Oh, did you review? Oh, because you reviewed Torrens
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah,
It
was
artificers are
really-
half casters, so not
I
many
didn't realize.
spells.
I didn't realize that was the same day.
Yeah.
Speaking
But
of
that's okay.
Torin,
No,
though,
that's fine.
Torin is an option. You could go back to the mill house and collect Torin now that you have a lead.
That's true.
Oh yeah, we probably should go get Torrin so that we have a little bit more muscle.
And so we have a authoritative witness as well, or someone that can, because yeah, that'd probably be good.
Well, he's got a stake in this too. So yeah,
Yeah.
let's do that.
Okay. So you go and tell Bracca and Squall that you've got a lead. And Squall is like, of course. I knew that hiring professionals like yourself was the way to go. I'm a firm believer in hiring the correct individual for the service you're looking to attain, and Malt seems to have come through once again. You can tell him that I will happily use his services in the future. Very well.
One thing for you, though, Squall, before we
Hmm?
leave. Whatever it is that was stolen that you seem to be so reluctant to tell us about, some very dangerous people have figured out what it is and what it does, and they're going to use it in a very dangerous way. So, my advice to you would be to find something else to deal in.
Would you make a persuasion check?
Sure.
Also, on top of that, because we know the circumstance, could you tell us some information about this? Because we will have to deal with it, and I don't think
So
it'll be
Rook
a
is
very
helping.
favorable
You can
way.
make it at advantage if you want.
Can I make an insight check to see if Rocco was impressed that we figured it out?
Sure.
You don't even have to roll. She's so impressed.
18.
18. Yeah, he looks at you and says, "Listen, I very much appreciate your concern, but the manner of business that I do, well, I'm going to continue doing business in the way that I see fit. However, if what you say is true and it's fallen into truly dangerous hands, I think Mr. Rook here makes a good point about you needing to know what is, well, what you're searching for. But it must remain confidential between the group of us here." And he gives a serious look to the group of you.
Of course.
Does he roll insight on us?
I mean, if any of you are trying to deceive him, I guess I would.
No.
Okay. And he says, "Well, very well. I suppose you deserve to know what you're seeking. The 6 canisters within the case contain dragon's breath." And that's where we'll end today's episode, after we find out if Brocco was impressed.
Oh boy.
I rolled the 9. I have no idea.
No.
Yeah, she's inscrutable.
Oh,
so that's
no.
where we'll end today's episode.
What a cliffhanger! Is Brocco impressed? That has to be in the
I see a
recap.
theme going. Was Brock impressed? Tune in to
Who
find
knows?
out.
Find out next time.
Yep. So we'll pick up with that next
Cool.
time on Antiheroes Anonymous. You know what you're looking for. You know where to look for it. And Raka is a big mystery wrapped in an enigma. So there we go. Thank you to anyone who tuned in to watch. Thank you to the group of you for playing. As always, I had a good time. I hope you did too. And we'll be back with more of this real soon. So hope to see you then. Bye.
All right.